About 150 miles south of the San Francisco Bay Area, nestled among the majestic cypress trees and looking out over the rugged and dramatic Pacific coastline, is a place where the ocean meets the mountains in a breathtaking display of grandeur. It's a serene and spiritual place with cascading waterfalls, a gracefully flowing creek, and naturally hot sulfur spring baths. It is a place of spectacular beauty and home to the Esalen Institute. Founded 6 decades ago, Esalen has been the epicenter of the human potential movement. It's a retreat center known for its many psychological, artistic, and spiritual workshops. Esalen is also the birthplace of a unique form of massage. The Esalen Massage, which is now practiced throughout the world, was developed over the years by an extraordinary group of teachers and practitioners who each contributed their own special gifts. I'm Ken Dychtwald. I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a brother, I'm an employer, I'm a psychologist, gerontologist, and I've also authored 19 books. And I'm a long-term friend of Esalen since way back 1970. I'm a former student, group leader, resident community member, and donor to this place that is so dear to my heart. Over the years, I played lots of roles, but I get the chance to play a very special role with regard to Esalen right now, which is that I'm going to be interviewing one of the people who's responsible for the creation and evolution of Esalen's incredible form of healing massage. Peggy Horan, my friend. Before we get into the interview, though, I may surprise you a little bit, but I've got some pictures. What am I looking at here, Peg?
Oh, that's me and my mommy. I think I was about 2 years old, and we were living in Santa Ana, California. My dad was in the Navy.
All right, so from a fashion point of view, am I wrong, but are you guys wearing matching outfits?
We are, and that was a thing back there in 1940 or 42, whatever it was. Yes. Mother and daughter outfits.
All right, so there's this cute little girl. And now, what are you doing with this cigarette in your mouth?
I don't know. I'm just playing with it. Looked like an interesting little box, had a nice color. I guess I just pulled it out, and I probably saw my mother smoking and thought, well, I think I'll try that. So there I am. I was all of about 1.
All right, let's keep rolling along. What am I looking at here?
Well, you're looking at a high school picture. I grew up in Larchmont, New York, was very suburban. It was very straight. That's me, probably 16, 17 years old.
Did you have any clue that one day you'd be kind of bodywork, hippie, massage, character, midwife in Big Sur?
No, absolutely not. Not any of that story. However, I always had a kind of rebellious nature. And I was always sort of seeking something other than what my experience was. So it's not surprising, but I never had it figured out in that way.
All right, so here we got another thing going on here. And I got to ask, who are you pregnant with here?
Jasmine.
So what are we looking at? What Peggy is this?
We're looking at 9 months. I was pretty close to delivery. And I was part of a belly dancing troupe. We had a wonderful group of women and musicians as well. And we would dance at Nepenthe on Sundays to do a performance. And the woman who organized us had a boa constrictor, and she danced with her boa. And we had a sword dancer, and we all soloed. And it was a fabulous, fun, wonderful, wonderful thing that we did. I was just passionate about that dance, that type of dance. And then we just drew musicians and other dancers and formed this troupe. And this was a Sunday afternoon at Esalen on the deck. Traditionally, there used to be Sunday afternoon music, mostly local drummers and musicians would come and play, and everybody would just dance. But every once in a while, there would be something special like this, a performance. So this was that performance. And
Dance during that era for many people was the jitterbug, the cha-cha, the merengue. That's not what you were doing.
Not in Big Sur.
What was this dance you were doing?
Well, this was Middle Eastern dance that we were doing. But the dance that was happening at Esalen, and one thing that so inspired me when I first got there was the freedom of movement. You know, if you watch old videos of rock shows or Woodstock, you know, you see just people are just expressing, they're just moving and just loving being free to flow with the music. And that's kind of what dance was about at Esalen. It was just sort of freedom of expression. But this particular thing was very much had a form. It was Middle Eastern dance, and we had Middle Eastern music, and Dick was a drummer, one of the drummers.
Okay, so there we've got a different Peggy.
This is Peggy after Lucia was born. I think she was probably maybe a year old. And yeah, that was a sweet moment.
And what am I looking at here?
This is our wedding. Dick and I got married at the barn. We had a total wild hippie wedding, probably the last event like that to happen at Esalen.
Around what year? What year might this be?
1980, yes.
So did you get married before or after Lucia was born?
After they were all born. Jasmine was about 8 months old when we got married.
Did your mom and dad go along with this sequence?
Oh, well, not in that order. But at the wedding, my dad stood up and they said, would you like to say anything? And he looks at everybody, he says, it's about time.
All right. So tell me a little bit about this party, because most people today wouldn't know about a hippie wedding party at the barn. First, tell everybody what the barn is and was, and what made it special, and then what happened at your party.
The barn was the art center at Esalen, and my husband Richard is an artist, and he was a potter there, and also a jeweler, cutting jade and making jewelry. And he shared the studio with several other artists, and he made a great big barnyard next to the barn itself, out of just wood that he found around. And we had sheep and goats and chickens and all kinds of animals over there. And for our wedding, he slaughtered one of the lambs, and we had a big lamb on a spit. And a friend of ours from the city, his name was Big Black, he came down and he roasted this lamb for us. And that was very ceremonial and wonderful. You know, we invited maybe 100, but we were at Esalen, we were at the barn, and people heard the music and heard about the wedding and just wandered over. We had one guest who was a follower of the Rajneesh school at the time. Mm-hmm. And she came and immediately took her blouse off. So she was running around topless, and my parents, of course, were a little amazed and a bit horrified. But you know, everybody just went with it. It's a party, it's a wedding, let's celebrate. Yeah, so we had a great time.
Well, I love this picture, Peg. And now we got a little bit of sunlight in the background, but tell us about this family portrait.
This was taken, I believe, when we first moved to Gorda Mountain. That was about 1981. That's Dick and myself and Jasmine on my right, and Lucia sitting next to Dick. Lucia was about 5 and Jasmine was about 2.
All right, here's these two beautiful young women. Tell us who we've got here.
Well, this was at Lucia's graduation from Goddard College back in Vermont. And so that's Lucia in the center and Jasmine to her right, and me. And we were celebrating her. It was wonderful.
Okay, now we won't necessarily be able to get everybody in this picture, but there's obviously Dick sitting and you standing behind him. Tell us a little bit about some of the flavors in this picture.
So this was taken on Father's Day just last week, and that's Dick in the center, and that's Lucia sitting next to him, and then on the other side of him is Lucia's daughter Olivia, who's 4.5, and behind her is her daddy Douglas, and to Douglas's left is Nadi. She's my other granddaughter, and she is 8.5, and then next to her,
Nadi's father is African.
Nadi's father is African. He's from Guinea.
Okay.
Yeah. And next to Nadi is Saffron, who's the goddaughter of Douglas. And then I'm on Douglas's right. And next to me is Sonia, who's a Buddhist friend of the family, a good friend of Lucia's many years. And to her right is Richard Villa, who is Dick's best friend. And that's Jasmine next to Richard Villa.
Well, one question on this. So some people come to Big Sur and they don't have families. They're kind of solos. You've got a big family, and I know your family. How's it feel to be the grand matriarch of a family?
Oh, it's wonderful. I love family, and we've always had a very open house. I've had other children living with us over the years whose families were going through difficult times. Couple of children lived with us for a few years. And I think I inherited it from my father, who came from Russia. And when he got to the United States, the family would trickle over. And he said his household was always full of Russian relatives who were arriving. And his father would say, "Move over, Josh. We've got your uncle's going to sleep in the bed with you tonight," or whatever. And I don't know, I just inherited that feeling, that sense of an open door. And especially because we have such a wonderful place, we have room. And I just love to welcome people into our lives, and particularly people who don't have family. And Thanksgiving, I always try and bring in the stragglers, people who don't have anybody close next to them or here with them. And it just feels right to me. Feels like, makes me happy.
When Nadi came along, I'd see you with Nadi being a grandma for the first time, and I've never seen you so goofy as in love as with this little child. So what was it like to become a grandma?
Well, it was so amazing. I mean, I had no idea. I heard grandmas talk about how wonderful it was. Oh, yeah. And you got to pull out the pictures. I became one of those people. I mean, I just fell in love with her the minute she was born. I was at her birth, of course. And, it was like, I don't know if you believe in past lives. I don't know if I believe in past lives, but when I saw Nadi, the first thing I said to Nadi was, "Do you remember me?"
Oh,
Yeah. So that's how deep it goes. And it's remained that deep.
all right. I'm going to stop sharing these pictures. And that was a wonderful little journey we just got a chance to take with you. So I've got some questions to ask, and I'm going to ask you to just tell it like you feel it and you see it, okay?
Okay.
How did your path lead you to Big Sur and Esalen in the 1960s?
Well, I was living on the East Coast, and I was married, and we were all sort of experimenting with whatever, lifestyle changes. And we heard about Esalen. So we came to visit Esalen about 1967. That was my first experience. And I came to a Fritz Perls workshop. And the whole experience was so amazing to me. I mean, coming from New York City to Big Sur, California in 1967 was, I often say I felt like Alice in Wonderland, like I'd just gone down the rabbit hole into this amazing new reality. And so I was captured. I mean, that was it for me. I went back to New York. I came back and forth for 2 years until I finally just decided I'm going to go there. I need to be there. This is my place.
Was it the therapeutic Gestalt experience? Was it Esalen's property? Was it Big Sur that you think was your biggest draw?
I think it was everything. I think it was all of it. And just the freedom that I mentioned earlier, the freedom of expression was so powerful to see it in action. And, the East Coast is very conservative compared to how things were out there. So it was just this opening, this amazing opening of spirit, of inquiry, of all things. And the other thing that I felt so deeply was there was an integrity there. It was in the land, but it really came forth. And the integrity that I felt there was something that I wanted for myself. I wanted to be more real with myself, more honest with myself, more in line with how I felt. And I felt that if I was there in this place that was holding so much integrity, that it would happen for me. I would learn and I would develop in ways that I felt I wanted to.
You mentioned the word freedom. Late 1960s, Vietnam War protests, pretty restrained society, a lot of questioning of authority. What was it about freedom that called to you?
Well, it was all those things, women, first of all, it was, we had birth control for the first time in the late 60s. So that was quite amazing. And I think the book that Krishnamurti wrote, Freedom from the Known, had a big influence on me. It was like, there's so much more out there to learn, to know, to see. And we were very, very restricted in the 50s back east. I mean, it was conventional. You do this, you grow up this, then you do that, and I really had a need to do something else. And I didn't know what that was, but this freedom was going to allow me to explore and to figure out who I am in the midst of all this and what I'm looking for. So it was freedom of thinking, freedom of expression, freedom to express one's feelings, to be honest. I mean, these were all new ideas.
Tell me, how would you describe Esalen's purpose in the world?
Esalen is a retreat center. It's an educational retreat center. So it's a place for people to go and, as I did, really discover oneself. There's lots of support for deep searching, contemplation, developing body, mind, and spirit. It's a sacred land. It's been used for healing for years before we got there. When the indigenous people, the Esalen Indians, were there, it was a healing center, and it still is. And healing happens in many ways for different people. But that's how I would describe it. A retreat center that's a healing, educational place of beauty and magnificence, really.
If there was one word you could give to a quality that Esalen has that many other retreat centers do not have, what would you say Esalen's got?
That's a tough question. I would say in the beginning, I would say cutting edge, because we were definitely cutting edge. The edge has been changed over the years, but I mean, it's still a magical place. It's a transformative place, and that's what happens for people. So maybe transformation would be the one word.
Thank you. Now, here we've got this retreat environment. People like Aldous Huxley, Tim Leary, Hunter Thompson, Abe Maslow, the founders, Michael Murphy and Dick Price. But this massage thing came to be. How come? Like, how did that happen?
Massage was happening when I first got to Esalen. So I'm not sure where the day it began, but I know that one of the people responsible for it originally was a woman named Molly Day Shackman, who had a practice in Swedish massage. So she brought that in. And of course, we had the baths and the healing waters there. And so it was sort of a natural evolution that massage would happen as part of that. And so Molly began with the Swedish massage, but there were many, many influences at the time. The body, mind, spirit was awakening to people, and particularly the body became something that people were discovering for the first time. Oh, we have a body. And there were some beautiful teachings by a woman named Charlotte Selver, who taught sensory awareness. And there was a lot of emphasis on sensing the body, on feeling the body, on not denying the body and closing it down, but really discovering the lessons that the body holds and the beauty. And massage was sort of part of that. It was helping people sort of return home to their physical bodies. And it really grew out of the many influences and the practices that were going on at the time. The Gestalt therapy, which emphasized the here and now, the Buddhist work of Alan Watts, again, here in the present moment, the work of Charlotte, sensory awareness, and then the Tai Chi masters who were there that sort of taught us all how to move in this beautiful flowing way. And we had the ocean to orchestrate that for us. And so we had many important things that were happening at Esalen fed into the development of what we did. And the massage went from a Swedish massage into a very slow and sensual type of work, sort of helping people to reconnect, as I say, to their bodies and discover for themselves.
How long would a session take?
Well, in the old days, it could take anywhere from an hour to 2 hours, depending, we were very loose and fluid in those days, and it didn't matter how long it was. There was no restriction on it. I think when I first came there, I paid $15 for a massage. And
gone up a little bit since then, we know.
Yeah, it's gone up a bit since then. But, and there were just a few people doing it. It was a very small group of people, my husband being one of them. Back in those days.
Do you think of it as a pampering? Do you think of it as a consciousness? Do you think of it as a healing encounter? How do you think about it?
It's a presence-based awareness practice that encourages self-healing. By that, I mean presence-based in that the practitioner is fully present. We are centered and grounded when we come to meet our clients. We are relaxed. Our nervous system is in a calm space, and we hope that will resonate with our client. So as we do our work, the space that we're in, of course, influences how our client feels. And if we're grounded and relaxed and present, that they pick that up from us. So there's that. There's the healing that happens naturally when one's nervous system relaxes, which is what happens on the table. There's awareness that happens when we come to places in the body that maybe have been numb because the person is holding there or because they don't want to feel what's there. The pain in the body is the body talking to us, telling us something's happening here, pay attention. So hopefully there's a learning that happens, but deep relaxation and awareness is what we're hoping for. When they finish the massage and they thank you, and that was so wonderful. And what they're really thanking us for is that we help them to connect to themselves. Yeah, there's a lot to it. There's a lot to it.
You have also, over many decades, served as a midwife. I'm not sure how many births you've been present for. Is it dozens? Is it lots?
About 100 births over 15 years. What prepared me, I think, so beautifully for midwifery was the ability to be present. And it was one of those things of kind of like the belly dancing was that just came out of nowhere for me and completely took me away. I mean, to me, it was the most magical, powerful experience of my life. And after that, I just had to do this birth work. And my dear friend, Honey Rose, was a midwife. And she had a whole bunch of children and needed help at going to births to handle the kids, come with her, hold the baby. So I started going to births with her, and she started teaching me. She was also what we call a direct entry midwife. So that's kind of how it happened. And then after a while, Honey retired, and Robin Burnside and I became partners, and we worked together for about 10 years, delivering home birth in Big Sur.
How does one best receive a massage?
I would encourage that person to stay with their breath, to check their breath, to be open to receive, and to really take control over your own body in the sense that if something is not feeling right to you as the client, that you let your practitioner know that right away. If the pressure is too much, if the pressure is too little, if you don't like the stretches, whatever is happening for you, you are the master of your own body, and you are in control of this session. So please give us feedback if you need to. Yeah, and enjoy. Okay, I got a couple of personal questions to ask you. So there you were at Esalen, and this form of massage was sort of being crafted
by a group of women. Why did you decide to do that versus being a dance teacher or a Gestalt therapist or a bioenergeticist or a sculptor or something? What drove you to decide that that's what you were going to do?
It felt very natural to me. It was just one of those things that the first time I was enthralled by receiving massage. Of course, I had never been touched in that way, that kind of loving care that comes with the Esalen massage was so wonderful. And the first time I gave a massage, it felt completely natural to me. It felt like a beautiful way for me to express love and to express caring. And I mean, my nature has always been to be a caring person. So it just kind of grew naturally out of who I am. I tried the group leader thing. I didn't do well at it. It wasn't my thing. I didn't want to be a therapist. It wasn't what I wanted. It was not only the expression, but it was something physical. I wasn't sitting, I was moving, I was dancing, there was movement in the work. So I love that about it too. And it just called me. Yeah, that's how it happened. So I kept doing it.
So for the early decades of massage at Esalen, there was no draping required or usually asked for. So the person getting the massage was nude, but the massage practitioner was nude also for decades. And people could think, oh, that's because it must have been a sexy thing. It wasn't about sexy. It was about caring and touch and natural. What's your recollection of the nude decades as a massage therapist?
Well, for me from New York City, it was pretty shocking to first get there and take off all my clothes and get into the tub with people. But I got over it quickly, and yeah, it was just natural. I mean, at that time, people were shedding inhibitions. That was part of the 60s and part of the movement, and people were taking off their clothes. And so there was this whole movement to accept our bodies, accept the beauty of the naked body, to not be ashamed, all of that. And because we worked at the baths, we would go and take our client, we'd meet them in the tub and bring a towel, and we'd all be naked. Everybody in the baths would be naked. So it wasn't as weird sounds because it was a total naked environment. But then we would go into the massage room or up on the deck or wherever we were working with the client, and we didn't dress. And that was just part of the culture. And people got used to it. A lot of people, if they were uncomfortable with it, then they would probably not come to the baths. But most people felt it was a growing and freedom for them to experience themselves and everybody else that way.
There are people who came and did healing massage in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, and went on to become school teachers or working at Google or something. You're still doing this work. You can go down to Esalen or attend a workshop, and there's Peggy Horan to sign up with. No big fanfare that you're one of the kind of co-creators and doing it. What's it like to be doing this for 50 plus years?
Well, it's just part of my life, it's just what I do. And what it gives me is great pleasure. I'm still fascinated by the work. I'm always learning. I'm always challenged. Each client to me is new. I have to recreate myself in that moment and them in that moment and be able to work with whatever comes to me and attune myself to that person and become present. I mean, the practice of presence is so vital to this work. And that's really helped me develop that over the years. And it's also, in some ways, I think maybe more compassionate person in that, each person who ends up on the table, you end up loving in a way. And so there's an open-heartedness that comes with this practice. And I think it's made me a better person.
When you think of your own work and your own body work, and you've worked on me many, many times. And when my daughter was a teenager and it was time for her to get her first Esalen massage, I made sure she got it from you. What do you think are your personal major contributions to the world of healing massage treatments, sessions?
Yeah, I think a really grounded presence, and an open-heartedness, empathy, compassion. When I'm with somebody, I'm really with them, and that makes a huge difference. Many of us have had treatment elsewhere, and it can be mechanical, and that's just not the way we work. There's a sensitivity and a consciousness that we bring to the practice that's so much bigger and encompasses so much more than technique.
Is it clearly, as you mentioned and as you describe, and for those watching this who've never been to Esalen, it is a property unlike any other property on Earth. Waterfalls, cliffs, dolphins breaching, galaxies bristling at night, and these natural hot sulfur springs baths surrounding the region where the massage rooms and tables are set up. What's your thought about people who would think about getting an Esalen massage someplace else?
Well, they can have a wonderful experience someplace else. It's different. It doesn't include all that, of course. But when you close your eyes and you're on a table, maybe some of that isn't so important. Of course, I encourage people to come because it's a wonderful experience, but I think you can experience an Esalen massage anywhere in the world. You just need a quiet, kind of sacred space created for you and the presence of somebody who can give that. So we actually have practice people all over the world doing Esalen massage now.
So you have taught thousands of people who have given thousands of massages. So there are millions of people who are in a way the downstream Peggy Horan and Vicky Top and Brita and Deborah teachings. Do you ever think about that?
No.
All through the workshops and the teachings and their work, that there are millions of people out there whose lives are being touched by what emanates from you?
Well, I don't really think about it. But when I do, when it's mentioned, like you're mentioning it now, yeah, it's wonderful. I mean, we can change the world if we can get people to touch each other and love each other and be kind to each other. So yeah, it's amazing to me, though, that we have grown from this tiny little entity in this little tiny place in Big Sur to being world known, world renowned, and practices all over the world. So it does amaze me that things have gone this far in 50 years. And we'd like to see it go further. I mean, it's when there's a healing practice that works and when people can learn to touch each other in this way, it needs to be spread.
What would you like when it comes to Esalen healing massage? How far out would you like for it to reach?
Everywhere. I mean, personally, I've talked to you about this. My deep hope was to take this work into prisons. And I was surprised, I guess naively surprised, that I couldn't do that because you're not allowed to touch in prisons. Now, to me, this was, one of the worst bit of news that I had. You can't touch in prisons. Of all places that need this work so deeply, it can't happen. So I'm hoping to work around that in some way and be able to teach mindfulness and be able to teach a little bit of yoga and a little bit of self-massage so that touch can be more around oneself rather than with each other. But I mean, these are populations like this who are so disadvantaged, have needing support, needing love, needing care and touch all over the world. I mean, everywhere there's like Ukraine right now, like, everywhere, Afghanistan, wherever people are suffering and hurting. And you remember how when 9/11 happened, how the people rushed in to help. I mean, massage therapists were there, to touch people and heal people. And particularly people who have had trauma. I mean, some of the people I'm studying with in this meditation course I'm taking have been on the front lines of Iraq and want to work with veterans who are coming home with PTSD. I mean, this is powerful, powerful stuff. And particularly now, I'm really enjoying the combination of the mindfulness practice along with massage, as an offering. And I'd love to see this everywhere, but particularly in disadvantaged. I mean, we have a a beautiful place, but it does cost money to come there. And what would be my dream is to see it get out in places where there is no money, but there's just a willingness to do this work and to give in this way. So
how's in your view, the medical field and the psychology fields come to comfort with healing massage in the 50 years that you've been doing this?
Well, that's a great question. And it's really happened. I mean, now there's so much science behind, affirming what we're doing and what we know to be true intuitively and from the work we've done. But, all the neuroscience proving that, this touch work, that quieting the nervous system, returning from fright and flight to a parasympathetic nervous system. I mean, all of this is being scientifically studied and proven. And there's definitely a much more of a joining between medicine, neuroscience, the work we're doing, the mindfulness work. It's amazing the change that's happened over the years. It's sort of become accepted and mainstream in a way. And I mean that in the best possible way.
Yeah, back in the early 70s, at least, medicine was very, other than osteopathy, medicine and chiropractic, and a little bit of naturopathy, but medicine was largely hands off.
Yeah.
And psychology had very little to do with the body. But your healing massage work seems to be in that territory between them and connecting them. And so your sense is in the last half a century that there's more acceptance. Do you see doctors showing up on your table? Do you see athletes showing up on your table for treatment?
Somewhat, but I think everybody's become more aware that, touch is vital for survival. I mean, that's been proven scientifically as well, and that touch heals. I don't know about physicians in practice. I still hear a lot of stories that tell me that there's not enough hands-on. I mean, really, literally hands-on in medicine. I always thought that we should be in medical schools teaching doctors how to touch patients. And that's another place I'd love to see our work happen, because sometimes doctors can be rough. They're in a rush. They don't know how to touch. They don't have the sensitivity, whatever. But that's a place that I think touch needs to be looked at in a deeper way.
Okay, we've got just a few minutes left, and I've got some personal questions to ask you. If you still game?
Sure.
Good. What do you think are the major contributions you've made in your life so far?
Well, I've been pretty rock steady in everything I've done. I think that helps other people become more steady in what they've done. I think that's one of the big ones. I've had certain leadership roles in a quiet way. That's something that's again has come naturally, but not something that I've been seeking. But it does happen. So maybe quiet leadership and consistency, groundedness, and presence.
Is there one teacher that was the most, now that you look back, influential on your work as a healing massage practitioner?
Well, Seymour Carter in the very beginning was very, very much that way for me. He definitely influenced my work. He was also a student of Charlotte Selver, a sensory awareness. He had an incredibly sensitive touch. And, back in the 60s, men were not allowing their feminine side. Men were macho, men were the boss, it was a patriarchal world. And there was something about Seymour that allowed a softness to come through him. And he was one of my first teachers. And I love that about him.
Okay, so since we're touching on some historical territory here, could you tell folks who Seymour Carter was?
Oh, he was a wild man. He was one of the Big Sur characters, one of the Esalen characters. He was a very independent thinker. He loved women. He was a fire dancer. He'd get up there on Sunday afternoon with the drums and he'd eat fire. And he was just this amazing man. And then he also studied Gestalt and became a teacher and a therapist, a Gestalt therapist.
Became a Rolfer also.
And a Rolfer as well. Right. So he was a man of many talents and exciting person. He was an exciting person, interesting, bright, smart, and wild. He was not the kind of guy to marry and settle down. No.
Is there something in your career that you're most proud of?
I don't know. One of the things I did during that time, which I am proud of, is help facilitate a video, which is a sort of a historical document at this time, but we did a Esalen Massage video. And I was a big part of that, and I loved that. And so there were things during that time that I am proud of. I think that I led with a lot of compassion and sort of encouraged people to be who they were. And I never liked to put people in a box. So I gave people a lot of freedom, which for the individuals was great, for the system, maybe not so great.
Another personal question. If you were the boss of all things, and you were to see to it that the Esalen Massage would change or evolve in certain ways in the years to come, what would you like to see it be more of?
You mean in the practice itself?
Yes, the actual massage technique and process and practice.
Well, I think it's really important that we keep an open mind to new possibilities. I mean, it really has developed over the years, but a lot of other influences, other types of body work have influenced our work, Traeger work and Rolfing and deep tissue and shiatsu. I mean, all the different forms. So I think it's important that we stay open to whatever new or old art forms come back into our field so that we can continue to incorporate pieces that work for us from different practices. So I think an open-mindedness for change, because change is inevitable, right? So I think that's important.
On the same path, can you imagine a certain kind of person who would be best fitted for the Esalen healing massage and other types of people who should steer clear?
Yeah, I would say that a person who's, willing to practice presence and that can translate in many ways, have your own practice or your own meditation, but somebody who is practiced in presence would be well suited, and somebody who's open-hearted would be well suited. And you have to love the work. And if you don't love the work, you don't do it. It's not for you.
When you think of your own aging, do you think of it as an ascent or as a descent?
Oh, an ascent, absolutely. No,
you didn't hesitate one moment there.
Not one moment. No.
Why?
I feel great, and I'm still so interested and involved and engaged in learning and in life and in my work and in my family. And I've got grandchildren. I want to see them grow up. I've got so much to live for, and I have the blessing of being healthy. I think I got great genes from my mom and dad, and I feel wonderful, and I do a lot to stay healthy. I'm definitely ascending.
Thank you. Last question. I want you to imagine it's many decades from now. I'm gone, you're gone. What is it you like for people to remember about you or to say about you? Peggy, she was
Kind.
Well, I want to thank you for being my friend. I want to thank you for doing the incredible giving that you do through your work and being such a role model for so many of us. Thank you, Peg.
Thank you, Ken, and thank you for all your support over the years.